we're really arguing semantics when it comes to the
I don't think
treatment of
that's semantic.
people,
I don't.
because one thing that we'd have to like agree to disagree with, right, is I don't believe that people that are not citizens should have equal rights or equal treatment in this country
Well, that's
whatsoever.
not what our Constitution says. So are you anti-Constitution?
I mean, yeah, I mean, and I made that position quite clear. In all of us did in the
So
many
let me ask you a
we
question.
don't agree with a
All
lot of the
right.
Constitution.
All right.
So,
Fair enough. Let me
yeah.
ask you this then. A woman who's been in this country for 20 years, she doesn't have the proper paperwork. She's
Hmm.
undocumented. She pays taxes though, and she's never committed a violent crime in her life. Are you comfortable with ICE agents wrapping her up and taking her to an El Salvador prison where people are being treated inhumanely, being beaten, being starved? And as you know, that's one of the highest maximum security prisons in the world. Are you comfortable with that? I'm not talking about just deporting her to her home country. I'm talking about deporting her to some of these high maximum security prisons. Like, for example, Alligator Alcatraz. Over 60% of the people that are in there right now have never committed a violent crime in their life. I'd rather
So
have the pedophile.
is this a real person that this happened to? They like give
Yes.
a or is this a straw
So,
man? Because
so
I
there.
mean, I can argue from both points though. I mean, here's the thing: at some point in time, when you have to be crass and direct and seemingly forceful, let's say. And I say seemingly intentionally because I think if you looked into the Obama administration, you can argue that there are some horrible things happening during deportations, but it wasn't being televised. The media wasn't on it. It wasn't being sensationalized, and it
Did they
wasn't
have
being used
Doctor?
to.
Did they have Doctor
The,
Phil there with a microphone, turning it? Were they gleeing about it? Were they laughing about it? Were they bragging about it? They
I don't know
literally
anything
had.
about Doctor. I mean, I'm not a fan of Doctor Phil either,
Okay, but
but
I'm telling you, the reason why I bring that
the,
up, Richie, it's an important point because Tom Homan and the Trump administration are gleeful. Alligator Alcatraz on the White House Twitter site, they're
sure.
bragging about it with alligators and alligator hats. That it's not. There's nothing funny about this, and I believe this is a fundamental difference we have. I'm sure. But I'm not
Maybe.
worried about nonviolent criminals that are in this country that are undocumented that
Oh
want
yeah,
a
we
better life
definitely
for
disagree
themselves
with
and their
that.
family.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, here's the thing. It's a horrible thing to say, and I don't relish in saying it because to be candid with you, when you present a situation like that and you say, "Are you comfortable with it?" Of course, I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with any person getting abused or bullied or whatever the case is, right? But what I am comfortable with is the message that it sends. I am comfortable that it sends a message to any and all non-citizens and or people considering to live and move into this country illegally that hey, I could be good, I could pay my taxes, I could do everything right, but because I'm undocumented, I'm going to face severe consequences. And you're right, we'd have to agree to disagree because I don't necessarily see a problem with that tactic any
Well,
longer.
this is just my opinion. I find more of a threat, and per capita, you have the better chance of being the victim of a crime from a U.S. citizen than you do somebody who is undocumented. But I find more of a threat a white supremacist who went
Well,
into the
I was
Capitol.
just about to say, what race of American citizen, if we're going to go into that statistics, and I
Well,
really
I'm
don't want to,
just
but
giving it. If you don't want to go to race, I'll just
no,
speak
but
in
we
general
can,
terms.
because I want to argue in favor of Americans, but when you're going to use statistics like you can be assaulted by an
Well,
American more likely
I'm
than an
more
undocumented
concerned.
immigrant,
I'm,
then we
I'm
do need to take the question
well,
of race.
in general, I'm more concerned about somebody who physically assaulted a police officer on January 6th, or somebody who
Mm.
sends a pipe bomb to CNN, than an undocumented immigrant who's been here for 10 or 20 years with a family who's never committed a violent crime in their life. I'd rather have them be here.
Why can't they be equally a problem in your purview though? Why is one worse than the other? Because
Why
I
is
mean,
one worse than the other? Because they didn't commit any
arguably,
violent crimes. That's why. What
I know, but does the culture matter to you? Does the shift in culture,
do you mean the culture?
well,
What
see,
do you
that
mean
kind
by
of
that?
that answers my question right there. I mean,
Well,
earlier you said that you were white, or do you identify as white?
yeah.
Are are you Jewish? Because your
Uh,
last name's Shapiro, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being Jewish or secular Jew or anything,
I
but
don't know. I don't know what bearing that has in people who beat police
I'm
officers.
going to get there. I was going
But
to mention
but
because as a secular Jew, you may have difficulty understanding maybe a cultural argument or a cultural position against like a white nativist population because it may not be as important to you when you consider maybe the foundations and what
I don't
maybe
care what the color of
identifies.
one's skin is. We just think differently. I don't care what the color of your
I
skin
don't
is.
care about skin color either. I care about assimilation and I care about tribalism. And that's what I really care about more than anything. And I argue till I'm blue in the face, quite frankly, that, when you don't have forced assimilation in a country, like every other sustained good country that's actually applying, let's say, a cultural socialism, like Japan, for example, where they would not tolerate any of this, then you have tribal warfare. And the reason why I bring up whether or not you're a secular Jew or not is because, in all honesty, I have secular Jew friends, and they have no problem admitting to me that even within their own circles, their families, their business partners, or their ability to grow within their community, they operate as one. They work with each other. They have each other's backs. They give each other.
I don't do that. I don't
that
care.
might not be your
I
life,
don't,
but
well,
but
again,
I'm just arguing that, it's hard for you to understand a tribal position because you might be a part of a tribe.
I think there are some people that want this country to look white. There are some people that don't want migrants here, that don't want brown people in this country. I was raised in
brown.
Well, listen, Donald Trump is treating people differently because of the color of their skin. He allowed 20 people from South Africa that are 100% white in here with open arms, but yet anybody who's brown, let's send them to, alligator Alcatraz. I do think color of skin has a lot to do with Donald Trump's policy on this issue. And by the way, I don't associate with people because of their religion or because of their skin color, because I'm not a bigot. I don't do that. And it has nothing to do with.
Wait, but are you calling, like Chinese Americans who have effectively taken over areas in LA like Alhambra, South Pasadena? You have multiple investigations in those areas where people are seeing that you have Chinese landlords that only rent to Chinese. They're discriminating against all other races of Americans. Are you calling those people bigots? You calling...
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
Fair enough. Then you have a fair argument. And
me. I don't discriminate.
No. I mean, we agree. That's something we agree on. I actually agree with that. But that levies my argument, not yours, because you're arguing for from my position, almost like a fictional America that no longer exists, because you want equality for all. You want everybody to be treated equally.
Sure.
The reality is that,
why is that fiction?
I know about those investigations into Alhambra landlords because I intentionally looked into them. If there was a white landlord that, publicly or whatever said, I only rent to white people, it'd be all over the news. Let's be honest. Let's be fair.
He'd be a jerk. He would deserve it. That's racist.
But fair enough. But the argument is it's not played on the same equal playing field.
Give me an example. Is that happening?
I just gave you an example.
So you're telling me there are people of Asian descent that are
it's not just Asians, it's Vietnamese, it's Mexicans.
Okay.
Here in Orange County, we have Santa Ana, where
white people can't live in their complexes.
In their they can't operate through the lens of tribalism without persecution. Of course not.
Guess who literally did what you are talking about?
You're talking about Arval in Arkansas?
Guess who was, they are doing that in Arkansas. I was going to bring that up as well. The guy who you once voted for was sued thousands of times and had to pay up a lot of money in discrimination.
You keep trying to bring me back to defend Trump, and I don't mean to be rude or anything, but you're going to be hard pressed to get me to defend Trump.
You voted for him.
I voted for him. First of all, I voted for him in 2016, and here's the thing: I don't necessarily disagree with Trump on some things. I don't think he's doing things right as of right now. I'm actually quite disappointed, especially like I said with the Israel thing, and I'd love to get your opinion on that as well.
The reason why I brought him up is because you voted for the guy that you're literally complaining about, the group of people who did the same thing in California. Donald Trump did the exact same thing in Manhattan, and you voted for him.
So he, first of all, he did it in the 70s, number one, okay?
Who cares when he did it? He could have done it 100 years ago. It's still just as wrong. I don't care whether
number two, he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was fined for it, right?
Thousands of discrimination lawsuits he had to pay out. Thousands.
Sure, but he was fined for it. Right here in Orange County, for example, in Irvine, you have effectively like an Indian takeover. I argue, come to Irvine, right, and drive in any direction, you'll be hard pressed to find someone who's not Indian or Chinese, specifically Indian. And if your argument is that's organic and there's no intention or direction behind that, you're wrong, and I think you're wrong, because there is a direction behind it. There is an intention. There is a tribalism developed within other cultures and races, and white people are not allowed to exemplify those traits. They're not allowed to defend themselves in the same way. It's simple.
Listen, if there's an example in the United States of America where and I don't care what race.
Arval is a great example. We can go into the conversation on Arkansas.
If there's any race that is doing that, it's wrong. What Arkansas is doing is wrong. What Augusta National Golf Club, not allowing black people to play golf there for decades, was wrong.
Do you know about Freedom, Georgia? Do you know about Freedom, Georgia?
No, I don't.
Freedom Georgia was a project started in 2020 by two black women who were far left. They were I think self-described Marxists, but they wanted to create a segregated community for blacks only. And it was publicly funded. It was applauded. I think I wrote about it on Twitter. Actually, I think MSNBC or one of them said it was finally a racial safe haven away from whites. And that's a mainstream media network saying something like that. They got $1 million in funding, right? And the most they ever produced was putting up tents on a, like, I think it was like a 100-acre lot or something. The only thing they ever did was put up tents. You have Arval, he's only been able to raise about $80K for his project, right? He's been able to construct a public schoolhouse and some other properties on his land. Look how the media is persecuting him, number one. Look how I think the Attorney General of Arkansas has already went after them. They intend to reopen the case, even though they found that he wasn't breaking any laws. Why is it that they're making such a hardline case against someone like that, doing effectively what they did in Freedom, Georgia?
Well, I'll say something
4 or 5 years ago.
With, and I think this is very important for context. There are groups of people in the world that have been oppressed. When you look at Indian reservations in the United States of America, there's a reason why we have those and those tribes and the casinos and all that, because of history. Now, last I checked, white people in the United States of America were not owned. We weren't owned by, this wasn't slavery where white people were owned. Now, that's not your fault, and that's not my fault.
You got to be really careful even with that statement. Again, we go right back to the conversation before about race. You can argue the contention that Irish Americans were indentured servants here, but you see what I'm saying? Like, we can get into the weeds. At the end of the day, you're serving to continuously prove my point that we've arrived at a place of tribal warfare, wherein, based off of your position, whites were not persecuted, and they don't deserve special treatment. They don't deserve this because they weren't persecuted, and this other group was. So they were allowed to do this, and they're allowed to be applauded by the mainstream. I think you can
find anecdotal evidence maybe of hate crimes against white people, but compared to African Americans, I don't know how you could make the case that white people in the history of this country have been treated worse than black people. I don't know how you can make that argument.